Good morning. Welcome to episode number 4 of Waves and Wheels, starring Dennis and Paul. And join us as we look back on our surfing and skateboarding adventures through the 1970s. Paul?
He's Dennis. I'm Paul.
Sorry for the...
Hi. Last episode we talked about basically how I got into surfing and my first surfboard and where I learned how to surf, and eventually led up to meeting Dennis. This week we're going to talk about a time in Dennis's life, a little further down the road, where he had to take a break from surfing, and what brought him back into it, and how he accomplished the fact to get back to the level of surfing that he was used to surfing at.
Close to it.
Okay, close to it. And he was not, a young kid anymore. He was an adult, an older adult. So it's an interesting story. Here we go.
All right. It all started. So approximately 2005, I was changed jobs, and I was very fortunate to be given the keys to a 2-bedroom apartment in Carlsbad Village in North County, San Diego, 5 blocks away from the ocean. So I had been on a roughly 15-year sabbatical. I could give you 5,000 reasons, but all of them were stupid, and that's just life. They decided to move on from that and get back into surfing. So I started, I remember the first time I went out, it was in between, I don't know what they call the power plant, I guess, and Carlsbad, the jetty there. I went out in the middle of the closeouts, and because I hadn't surfed in 15 years, I was weak, all the surfing muscles were gone. My psyche wasn't there. I was scared to death. I didn't want to be around anybody. I was embarrassed that I was a kook again.
How old were you?
I was in my 50s somewhere. It's kind of hard to really pinpoint.
Around your mid-50s.
Yeah.
So again, not a spring chicken making a comeback.
Yeah. But mentally, a lot of that was, mental. So I went from there. I went north of Tamarack a little bit, in between the surf shop and the actual break at Tamarack, and started taking my lumps and getting it in there as best I could, and staying away from people. Again, even when I'm surfing, well, I don't like to be around a lot of people, so that was one of my main things. And graduated over to, what is that called, Paul? The bluffs over there, the cliff where you used to walk your dog. It's
not hole in the wall. That's turnarounds.
Turnarounds, yeah. And then I started going to turnarounds because it was obscure. You'd have to go down the cliff, and nobody was around you. And I put quite a bit of time into that spot. But I want to backpedal just a tiny bit because I need something to ride when I'm out there. The first surfboard that I got was a little tiny 6 foot, to me. It was under 6 foot a little bit. It was a Channel Islands, and the thing was like brown. It used to be white. It was brown from being aged. And I noticed that, again, it was 15 years since I surfed. I noticed that when the first wave I caught on that board, I could tell right away the rocker, that they've perfected the rocker on boards. That board picked up the wave a lot easier than boards that I used to ride, and although it was very tiny, it worked well. And really, you could tell the progression as far as shaping was concerned. So, but it was way too small. In my adventures at work, I ran into a gentleman, I believe his name was Rob, and he was a surfer, and he traveled a lot. He let me borrow a board, it was a little small board, but I believe, Paul, you had talked about those blocky rails. This was a Sourich, and it was really wide, and it was like the same thickness all the way through to the rails, and then just dropped off.
Yeah.
With a really flat deck, which really gave me a lot of, paddle power and floating. And it was a 4-fin, which I loved that. That's what I left. That's the last board I had when I quit. So I rode that for a little while, and he also sold me a 9.6 longboard that I also frequented just to get out in the water and get repetition and surf, because I virtually surfed every day before work, sometime between 6 and 9 o'clock in the morning, almost every single morning. So I had to have something. I started accumulating boards. So this guy, yeah, he sold me that board, and it was actually quite an interesting board. It had a lot of Oingo Boingo theme airbrushed on it, and it was like
from the 80s, huh?
Yeah. It was fluorescent. It was fluorescent every color you can think of. Like,
oh, I bet you loved riding that.
Yeah, totally not my style. You know that, Paul. Yeah, totally not. So,
this is Mr. Whiteboard black wetsuit right here.
Right. Yeah. So. Then I started venturing around into the surf shops. I went into a Whit Rollet shop, the Carlsbad Pipelines, really never saw anything I wanted. Frequented there's two San Diego, or not San Diego, there's, what are those called? Two big surf shops. One is up here in Oceanside, the other one's in Solana. I frequented the one in Solana because an old friend that used to work at Sunset Surfboards when I rode for Sunset, Ryan, was the manager. So we talked and looked at boards every once in a while, and then eventually he got laid off or something, and there was a new guy there, and when I went in, it happened to be somebody that knew who I was, and I really didn't know him, but was, had a man crush on me, so I started, that's all I can think of. It was good for me. And he's a great guy, very nice guy, John. He's still the manager there, but he started, turning me on to deals on everything I wanted. So that door opened up. I got my two favorite boards. I got a 7, I think it was like 6'11" Rusty that was like a bat tail forfeit. Great board, older board, was beat up, but I rode that thing until it was gone. And I also got a John Keys 7.6 I want that board back right now.
John makes a good board.
I could catch any wave I wanted, 7.6. Swallowtail thruster that I turned into a 4-fin and then put it back to a thruster. But that board caught any wave I want, and I could surf it like a 6-foot board. Again, I'd love to have it back. It was my big wave board, and it was my small wave board. It was my board when I was tired. It was easier to catch waves. I also held on to a 6.8. I forget who it was made by, but it was a copy of a Channel Islands flyer, I believe it was, the 6.8, and that's the one that you and I was riding that one time that we went out there. You had your red board. So anyway, I had no problems procuring surfboards, and then after a while of surfing up at turnarounds, I started to get my I don't know what you want to call it back, but I got it back, and I do specifically remember the wave and the maneuver that did it. My favorite thing is going fast and maybe taking a large chunk out of the wave, or just doing some really hard, long, grinding roundhouse cutback. So, excuse me, I was on the little Sawrich board, and that was orange too, by the way, speaking of white boards. And I caught a wave that it was inside shore break, and it was probably 3 to 4 feet at turnarounds. I caught a wave and got a couple turns and got out in front of it, and just when I went to do the cutback, that thing caught and it just channeled, and it tracked and went woo, flew all the way back, hit the soup, came back around, and in the middle of my next turn, I went, I'm back, baby, because I could feel it. It's definitely a feeling. And only women know, yes, but for me, I'm a man, I can't speak for women, but it's like driving a car, you can feel it,
Yeah.
If you're that good, you can feel stuff. You start to.
It's like peering a golf ball, or
it actually becomes part of you. So that was it. I'm back. So I made the move over to Southside, which is a jetty that is an outlet to the lagoon there, and there's a right that breaks off of that.
Again in Carlsbad.
And it's in Carlsbad, and really liked it. Reminded me of my home break at Seal Beach because of the jetty. But the thing I really liked is the wave seemed to never break in the same spot at the same time. Loved it, man, because you could sit there and look across at Tamarack and see this giant pack of people, because that's where the waves broke every time. Excuse me. So I was able to, move around, which I like to do. I don't want to sit there and have people talking to me and then take off on me because we're friendly. So I really enjoyed that part of it, that it was a moving play field out there. And you recall the first time I went out there, I had actually had a board that was eye-glassed. Ed Wright, who I had rode for Ed Wright on Sunset Surfboards just prior to my sabbatical, actually. And I wasn't a very good person to him, and so I found him at the Calvary Chapel and went in and apologized to him and just let him know that he was good to me and I was an idiot to him. So he shapes me a surfboard. He forgave me, obviously. We became a little closer, and he made a surfboard for me, and I glassed it. And I took it out there the first time I rode out there, and it was like a solid 5 foot, and that board was too small. It was a little 4-fin, right at 6 foot. And I could tell that wasn't going to work, but I remember the first wave. Just as soon as I took off, the thing just almost shot out from under me and went flying, and I accidentally ended up as soon as I hit the bottom, I ended up turning, and I wasn't in control. I'm trying to stay on the board, and it went to the top of the wave, and I was standing closer to the tail, and I knew it was going to fly out, so I tried to cut back off the top, and it just whipped around the top, and it came down with the lip flying in the air and landed and made it, laid down and went in and went home.
So that's enough.
Yeah, I'm like, this is, it was very lucky that I didn't get my head handed to me. So then I liked the wave, I liked the place, I started getting...
It's a fun place.
Yeah, I started getting on the longer board. And I specifically, and this is dawn patrol, okay? It's dark when we get there, and we're looking at it, and we get out there first, because I've got to go to work. I'm working full time at this point. So I remember the crew that was out there. There was a gentleman named Matt, and another one was, Jack. And Jack was like, he was an older guy, and he was like their guru.
He was the local.
They looked up to him, Alva and Matt and Sal. And I remember the first time I surfed, Matt came in and introduced me. I'd already surfed. He was out there. Or no, he was on the beach. He was at we congregate by the seawall. We had a spot wherever we all hung out. He comes up to me and he introduced himself, and his first words is, "Man, Jack's not gonna like you." I'm like, who the hell is Jack? So we found out that, Jack's like the old guy that I don't really want to call him, he's just been there forever. And we became friends on and off, and, we weren't really compatible as far as friendships go. He was quite a stoner, and at the time I wasn't. I was clean and focused on surfing, so I didn't have time for that stuff. So after a while, he's just riding the longboard, and then that longboard was just too much, and my longboard became the 7.6 John Keys, the big guy try. After a while, and
I have one of those in my garage right now.
Yeah, and then just hanging out at that spot and being around these people. Every day, after a while, I started to walk just to get exercise. It was because if I didn't surf, I would walk. But then after a while, I thought, this is good to loosen up. So I started walking every day prior to surfing. And I ran into a gentleman that I thought worked at the church where Ed Wright was. He looked exactly like him. He was actually he was like a construction manager or something. They were building onto the church. And I was walking, I came across him in a parking lot, and I called him by that name. I said, and he looked at me like I was, crazy. And I said, "Aren't you so-and-so?" at the church? Did you work at the church? It's not nice, but I remember his very words were, hell no. As I stepped back, hopefully the lightning would just hit him. So, yeah, I was, and we became pretty close after that. His name is Dave Nash, and he owns San Diego Surf Shops in San Diego County. It was a great honor to meet the guy. Super nice guy. Happens to know a couple gentlemen that I went to school with, actually. One of them was a salesperson that he helped me get back in contact with, actually. But after talking a while and going through things, just sharing every day, he realized I was my background is in maintenance, and I can fix just about anything. And if I can, I'm going to learn how. I enjoy it. So I became his maintenance person for his shops, and I wasn't doing a ton of work, but I definitely did some work in some of his shops for him. And he, not in return of that, it was just before that even happened, he granted that anything that he can get his hands on, I can have for cost, which is something. I mean, at that age, and having gone through what I went through before, being given everything, including and especially drugs, everything's given to you. It's humbling in certain instances, and it's insulting in others. And this was extremely humbling. The guy, doesn't know me from anybody. He's seen me surf. He definitely knows. He knows about that I can surf and all of that. And I guess he just liked my enthusiasm, and I had every intention of, representing him in any way I could, and pay him back any way I could, because that meant so much to me, so much. I mean, even right now, it just makes me emotional that, and believe me, everybody knew that too at my age. I ride for San Diego. It means something. You see,
it does.
And going back all the way back in my life to where that happened the same way, and was completely abused and rammed down my throat and almost ruined my life. It was different. You can see the genuine care, and the person likes people. He's a people person.
That's good.
Yeah. Well, you met him because he invited us to the.
Went to a grand opening of the store in the big Victorian home on the corner of Carlsbad Village Drive and Coast Highway.
What is that called? The Ocean House, wasn't it? The
Ocean
Ocean House.
House,
He for years wanted that location,
and
finally got it. And he opened that up, and he had a huge party where we ran into Rob Machado and Tommy Curran, and
PT.
And my favorite one was Peter Townend, who
such a gentleman. PT is such a good guy.
He is a great person, man. This guy, these are the very words, and I love it. He says, he saw me, he goes, "Hey, it's the Dennis Ward." I went, "The Dennis Ward?" But yeah, he's still got that style of talking, and
he's a good guy.
I met Peter when I was surfing professionally, and there was a California circuit that was overseen by the NSSA, which he was quite
Yep, I remember that.
Enveloped in.
With Ian Carnes.
Yeah, and with Ian Carnes. Yeah. One of the funny things, the funnier story is I was the first time I won money in their contest. I literally Monday morning was at their bank with the check. Yeah. And it was hilarious because it's in Huntington Beach. And I'm standing there, and I just look over my shoulder, and Ian Carnes is standing right behind me. And I said, "I think you need to go in front of me, right?"
Make sure this is good.
Make sure he's depositing money. And we had a good laugh on
it's
that.
It's really funny about PT. That was the first time I had met him. Mm-hmm. And he was one of those guys when we were growing up in the 70s. I was part of that Bronze Aussie crew and all that. And charging Hawaii with Rabbit and Ian, and
he was the first world champion.
Yeah.
Without winning a contest.
Great surfer. Always rode pink boards.
Yep. He was
a nice guy and everything like that. But that was the first time I'd ever met him, and I ran into him a couple of years later, and he remembered me.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, you're Paul. You're Dennis's friend that I met at, and I'm like, good God,
This guy,
That meant a lot to me.
Yeah, well, me too. Well, as far as a person goes, this man must know 1,000 people.
More, yeah.
No, 1,000's a lot. Well, if you think it's probably less, but he must know 1,000 people at the same level he knows me, and he treated me like he hasn't seen me since yesterday.
Well, that's why he's the kind of guy he is.
He's just a great man. I'm so influenced by him.
As successful as he is and everything,
Yep.
because of how he treats people.
Yeah.
Good guy.
Well, interesting enough, I was thinking about this last night when I was groveling over doing this episode because it involves me so much. I'm forgetting what I was going to say. Doggone it.
That's a brain fart.
Yeah, that's another brain fart for our age. No, it just shows you that at the beginning of surfing, I was so involved in that and so into it, and it was my life, and I had blinders on. Women thought I was gay. Guys hated me. Nobody they wanted to stay away from me.
You were a very misunderstood guy.
But the point really being that was me, and I was into that, and at my age now, at 70 years old, it's about people. It's ridiculous that I had it completely wrong. Can't do anything without other people. If you're alone on the planet, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
You can cuss them out, you can do whatever you want, you can be the jerk that you are, but when it comes to needing them,
Yeah.
watch out.
Well, it's all about relationships.
It is a relationship.
And it's really interesting. I never had the kind of relationships that you had as far as at that level, because I wasn't as an accomplished surfer as you. I had my own level, you get to that level and then there's the next one where all the pros are sitting at. I was never able to make that jump. You was already at that jump. And, but I made relationships too. I mean, when I was working in Seal Beach and living around there, and Bruce at Bruce Jones Surfboards always took care of me, always gave me deals on stuff.
Yep.
When I moved south, I went looking for a surf shop to get a board, and I went to 4 or 5 different shops because I figured I needed to get a board for this area, because the boards I was riding were more Orange County surfboards, and they're a little different.
Yeah.
And so I went to 4 or 5 different shops, and every one of them was just like aloof and didn't want to talk to me. No offense, but your buddy at Sunset was one of them. And on a whim, I saw Encinitas Surfboards, and I said, oh, what the hell, I'll just stop in there. And both Mark and John Keys, what's Mark's last name? Anyway, they're the owners. They started the shop back in the early 70s. We're both in that day, both working. John shapes all the boards, and Mark runs the shop. That's their arrangement. Excuse me. And I walked in, I was talking to them briefly at the counter, and I told them what I was trying to do, and John was the nicest guy in the world. Took me aside and said, here, let's talk surfboards. And he took me over and spent an hour with me talking about surfboards and what I like and what I don't like and what I was looking for, what I was riding. And I just so happened I had one of my boards with me at the time. And I brought it out and I showed him what I had been riding. And it was, what was it? It was an RGK.
Oh.
And he goes, okay. And I said, he goes, yeah, that's probably not going to work great down here. It'll work, but not great. He says, well, let me show you something. He proceeded to show me different things. So I decided right then and there this is the guy I was going to deal with.
Can I just piggyback?
Yeah, go ahead.
That is his reputation. That this man knows how to shape a surfboard for the area that he's in.
Yeah.
He was well known for that and for the big guy tries. He knows how to build boards for bigger people.
Yeah.
Which in that period of time, especially that period of time, I'm sure you couldn't find anything over 6 foot. It's ridiculous.
Everything was small.
Everybody wants to sit up to their chin in water, and the fact of the matter is, you're not going to surf a wave if you can't catch it, right? So.
Well, that's one of my big arguments with going into shops these days, where these kids are in the shop selling surfboards to people that don't know anything about surfing, or at the very beginning of their surfing careers, or they're bigger guys like I am. I'm over 200 140 pounds. Now I can't ride anything small anymore. At that time, I was about 185 pounds. But so I wasn't going to ride anything under 6 feet at that time. But you go into shops these days, and they're selling people these little toothpicks and potato chips.
It's a popularity contest.
And it's like, why would you sell that to somebody? Sell to their ability. Give them something they're going to be able to enjoy and learn on, and then advance to that. But with John, he was just the guy, man. He said, okay, well, I decided to order a board there on the spot, and he says, about how big? And I think it was 6'6". I want to say it was 6'6". It was a squash tail 3-fin with wings. And he said, okay, I'm going to shape it on whatever day it was. He said, can you come to the shaping room, which was up off of Encinitas Boulevard? And I said, yeah. And I always liked to watch guys shape my board. Kurt at Harbor used to let me watch him shape boards. Rich would let me watch him shape boards at Harbor. Bruce would let me watch him shape boards. And in fact, Bruce would let me pick out my blanks from the rafters. Which blank do you want, Paul? And everything like that. And then
it's just those little things,
yeah,
that make you feel special.
And it makes you feel part of the process.
Yes.
And so I sat there with John, and he talked me through everything, why he was doing what he was doing, and everything. And I already knew from him and from the guys I used to work with why surfboards are made the way they are, what things do within surfboards. Like you made a really interesting point when you were telling your story a little while ago about how as soon as you laid on that board and caught that board, how it picked up.
Feel how it
he used to be able,
water.
and he taught me this, and I learned it. And to this day, I can lay on a surfboard in the water and paddle it and tell you if it's going to work or not.
Yeah, you can keep going or turn around and come back.
Yeah, exactly how it feels underneath you in the water.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons I stopped riding RGKs, because he made me a board that took forever for him to get to me. And God bless Bob, he's a great shaper, he really is. But he made the board that was too thin; it wouldn't float me. And I told him that when I picked it up. And he said, no, it'll work, trust me, and everything. And I laid on the board, and it sank that much under the water. And I'm like, God damn it. Went back to the car, got my other board, and came back out. But, John walked me through the whole process. And that was back in the 80s.
Yeah.
And I have been riding his boards ever since. Every board I've ever gotten, with the exception of one. I have a 10.6 50/50 rail, old school Harbor 18 down in my garage.
Is that the red one?
The red one.
Yeah. Wow, that was
giant board.
You took that out at Southside.
Yeah,
and I had that little piece of the
didn't
6'8".
work. Didn't work.
I was struggling too.
But it's a great board. But I still have 2 John Keys boards in my garage.
Should paddle for that thing now.
Yeah, I could probably. It's thick.
Yeah.
It weighs a lot too. It weighs about 35 pounds.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, but that's interesting. There, that reminds me that my story is not really over with Dave. He, like I said, he gave me whatever he could get for his cost. So, I don't know if these tie in or not, but I want to tie them in because it's interesting and important and kind of wow, weird story. I just remembered it. In surfing out at Southside, I was riding my 7.6 most of the time. And then, there's some individuals that come out there once in a while. There was 2 of them. His name was Jake, and he rode those little cut-off nose boards all the time. And
I remember him.
Yeah, we kind of got acquainted. And then there was another guy, and it was that guy. It's just that guy from South Africa. That's what I said, because I eventually was able to paddle up and sat and talk to me eventually, and we didn't exchange names. It's the weirdest thing. I asked him, because he has a South African, he has an accent. He's from South Africa. Oh yeah, my home break is a left point break. Blah 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 blah. Whatever. So we surf all the time, and then in the interim, for some reason, I just get an eye. The Kelly Slater had started making his designs to through Firewire.
I remember when you got that.
So he had that sci-fi really caught my eye. So I purchased a sci-fi from Dave, through Dave for cost. I got that, and then I bought another one, a little bit longer one, another Firewire. And, you know, we're just surfing out there. And then one day, it was Jake. I had come in from surfing, and I don't know what brought up the conversation, but we talked about this guy before, and he's a good surfer. You know, I consider Jake and myself and this guy were kind of in the, you know, we understood each other because of our abilities and wherever we'd been or whatever. Anyway, Jake goes, "Hey, Dennis, you know this South African guy that you're talking about?" And I said, yeah. He goes, "Do you know who that is?" No, it's that guy from South Africa. And I'm going to brain fart here again, but I know his first name is Mark, but he's the CEO of Firewire. And he is, oh goodness, he was one of the people that I followed in the 70s pro surfing scene with Sean Thompson and all those guys.
Mark.
It's not Mark Warren, it's Mark. He's from South Africa, but he's very, very well known. He was like the top 5 in the world the whole time.
CEO of Firewire?
Yeah, he wasn't flamboyant. That's why I liked him, because the whole scene, and this guy just kind of quietly navigated through all of that and ripped. And it was so funny that I didn't know who he was. So I didn't even know, you know, it didn't matter because we had that thing, you know. See, that's what I'm trying to say about the whole surfing thing, is like there's different ways of taking it and absorbing it into your life. Like
Mark Price.
Mark Price. I followed him. You
know,
and it was just hilarious that I never knew his name, you know. And
he was quite the good surfer.
yeah, but then when I heard that story, I did talk to him one time about it, and I haven't seen him since because, you know, things changed, and you know, that comeback actually had to come to an end too, and it's not very fun to talk about it, but I do recall the last almost 5 years that I was surfing on that, on the last time I came back. Started just not feeling it, not liking what's going on. And I'm a person that likes to, you know, I point myself down left or right, and I jump up and haul butt. I want to go fast. I want to take big chunks out of the way. I want to do big, long cutbacks. And of course, I like to ride in the tube. Who doesn't? But after a while, I started noticing, well, I really noticed when I got to the beach, I was, instead of finding reasons to go out, I was finding reasons not to go out. Yeah. And it was psychological. I'm like, I don't know what's going on. I just, like, you know, no more mojo. What's going on? And then after a while, I started noticing that I was having issues with my right leg, which is my back leg, and I was like dragging it to get up. I wasn't jumping up like I used to, you know, in a one flowing manner. I was like, boop, boop. I was getting up in a 2-step thing, and when the waves started leaving me behind, that really, really frustrated me. So that, I'm sure that's what was in my head in the start, and I just never returned, and ended up having my right hip replaced.
Yeah.
After about 1.5 years of that,
I remember a lot of pain.
I had no idea what that was. It just started mentally with me because I knew I wasn't all there.
Yeah. Well, that's what it takes sometimes. I mean, you know, it got to the point with me too, where my back was bothering me every time I went out. My neck was bothering me. Yeah. And it just was, I couldn't get over the hump anymore. Yep. But one of the nice things about that story was you surfed for another how many years after you made that comeback?
Like 6 or 7. Yeah.
So all you guys out there that are, you know, in your late 40s or into your 50s that are still in good shape or fairly good shape, or almost in good shape, that have the time that used to be surfers, and would love to get back in the water, you can still do it.
It can be done.
Yeah.
But I would caution, you know, that follow your heart and follow your mind, because you can drown in a teaspoon of water, and you just keep that in mind. I mean, I can tell you at that place alone, I have been on the Rusty forefin, I've been on like a 5 foot solid wave at the bottom of the wave with the wave coming down at me, sitting on my ass in the middle of the board, the bottom of the board, with the nose pointing forward and the fins pointing backwards, and just ready to take those fins right up, just have some surgery with the fins. Was able to get off of that. I've also had that long board on the inside when I went to kick out. The wave tomahawked real fast and pulled it out from under me, and I got caught in the lip. When I came down, the board hit me in the leg, just below my knee. Yeah. It would have broke my knee, but my leg was purple and red and bleeding inside for a week and a half. I mean, you can get hurt very easily, so don't let your mind fool you that, it's a very physical sport.
Should I tell them about mine?
Sure. It's a physical sport.
I was 17 years old. I was still in high school. No, I was just out of high school. 17 or 18 years old. I surfed in Seal Beach River, and we were riding longboards, old school longboards, because the waves were really small. Yeah, gronks, logs.
Yeah, wow.
And, with the old D fins. And I was riding this wave, and I got hit by a side chop coming up the wave, and it hit underneath that board and flipped the board and flipped me up in the air. I came down and landed on that board, and landed with the fin right between my legs.
Aye.
And, if you're a guy, the pain, instant pain. Almost blacked out. Somebody grabbed me and put me on my board because I was laying basically face down in the water.
Yeah.
And got up onto the board and looked at my yellow hang 10 trunks at the time.
They were red.
They were red.
Ooh.
I'm like, holy shit. Got to the beach. Blood running down my leg. Looked inside my shorts, and I had a cut that long on my balls. And it was a compression cut, like you'd been hit by a fist or something like that.
Wow.
So it was, just popped like that. Fortunately, it didn't go all the way through, and nothing was coming out from inside. And I had to go to obviously I had to go to the hospital. My friends drove me to the hospital. And again, I'm a 17, 18-year-old kid.
Yeah.
Was sitting in the waiting room with a red towel around me, soaking up blood. They take me in, and in walks a nurse and pulls off my trunks, 18-year-old kid, right? And proceeds to clean me and shave me. And then the doctor comes in, and it's a woman.
I gotta keep this R hair under R rated.
And it's a woman, and of course, I'm embarrassed as hell, and she's was very good and very professional. I got 8 stitches, kept me out of the water for almost a month, and but that, it's like you said, it's a dangerous sport. I mean, I got a scar on my chin right here from getting hit. I got a scar on my belly from being hit.
Those fins are notorious. I can remember walking down at Sunset Cliffs. We were going down cliffs, and I believe it was me. The guy behind me got my fin, went right through his bottom lip. I remember he put a piece of electrician's tape. Just went surfing.
Let's go surfing. Yeah. Well,
we were men back then.
Yeah, well, back in the day, we had never ridden twin fins or multi-fin boards. Everything was single fins.
Yeah.
So what's the first thing that happens when you start riding a twin fin or a four fin? You start kicking fins under your board, and you got scars all over your ankles and the top of your feet.
Yeah.
I mean, I still have scars to this day all over my feet.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I have the one between my eyes.
And I got a big old scar on my knee that I got in Hawaii from bouncing off the bottom in Hawaii at Kaiser's on the south shore of Oahu.
I only got cuts on my fingers from hitting the reef when I was paddling.
Yeah.
That's
reef cuts on my feet.
When I went to Hawaii, I said to myself, I'll never be afraid of another California wave in my life. Because when I'm paddling, a set's coming in, a freaking coral head surfaces in front of you, and you're like, it can get surfaced like a foot and a half out of the water, and you gotta go around it, and the waves breaking on you. Shit, I'll never be afraid of sand bottom again.
No.
But that's not a good attitude either.
No.
Sand will get you.
Well, that's part of the reason I can't surf anymore is because I plowed my head into the sand enough times to screw up my neck and surfing shallow waves and screwed up my neck. I've got calcified vertebrae in the front of my neck, so I
The
can't
last time I
move
went
my
on the
head
guy-
very far.
They said my neck was, almost everything up there was cracked.
Yeah, I believe it. I believe it.
Yeah, so,
We've had our fun.
yeah.
We've had our fun, and that's why we're doing this, because we want to tell you about
Sharing
it.
it with you, you can have more fun.
But you know, one of the things that you didn't hit on, and I know you may not want to talk about it, but and we're going to do this very briefly, okay? When we first started hanging out, he wasn't so much this way. He did get up early and he checked the surf out and always got coffee and stuff like that. And we had a way we did things in those days. But in his adult life, he was very regimented. Mm-hmm. And you alluded to that by getting up every morning, going for a walk or going surfing. You know, he didn't tell you that if surf was no good after his walk, he'd go play tennis.
And then go to work.
And then go to work.
Yeah.
You know, and he had a very regimented way he did life. And he didn't realize why he was that way until just recently. And he may not want to talk about it, and it's up to him. But he's writing a book about it. And that'll be something we'll talk about later on down the road. And, you know, if he wants to talk about it, he can talk about it. But if he doesn't, he doesn't. We'll respect his privacy. But it's led him to do something to reach out to try to help others. And so that's something that we'll tickle you with down the road.
Well, I'll just touch on it briefly because we need to end this episode, and because we're getting close to the next episode, which is just a continuation of this one, but we have a big surprise for you. I was diagnosed with ADHD, a adult ADHD a while back, and never realized my whole life that I had that, and I may have even been autistic when I was a child. I'm going over things for this book back, obviously, in my past, and noticing that, you know, that it was there. And but the thing I want to stress the most is you don't need the drugs. I somehow I got around it, and that was what is considered now cognizant therapy, was what I was basically doing without knowing it. And
On his own.
And it's a simple,
On his own.
yeah, on my own, but it's also a simple thing. It's like a replacement theory. They take alcoholics and drug addicts and they try to make them stop, and then they send them back out into society. You need to replace that, because that's something that's there. You develop that in your mind, and you just replace it. It's not saying it's easy, but you can't ignore it. It's there. It's always there. You've experienced it. You can't run away from it. That's what I've been doing my entire life. It's interesting that I've ran away from something that I've coped with. It's confusing as hell. But it's not in this book. I've got it in my notebook. I wrote down 4:30 a.m. Wake up. Used to walk across the street, get coffee, get a newspaper, read the newspaper, get my coffee, get rid of the yesterday's food, go to the beach. Still dark, and meet my friends. There's a couple guys that we'd meet down there. We'd talk and whatever, and decide if we're going out while we're watching the waves, if there's any, and it's still dark. And I would take off and go for a walk, about a mile at least, just to do something, because I can't stand there and talk or look at something, and then come back and either go surfing or go to work, or maybe if there's time, play a little tennis and go to work. Somewhere along the line, and I'm happy with the way things are, but sometimes you don't want to dig too deep back in them. But I've discovered one thing is for sure, that physical activity and recreation, from walking to surfing to golf or whatever, is excellent for ADHD. It keeps your mind occupied, and then the other thing is the regimen, the schedule. I did that for 14 years to some extent. Excuse me. I'm on. I gotta call you back. Sorry.
We'll edit that out.
edit the wife out.
Maybe we won't.
That's perfect. What was I even saying? Thanks, Tom.
You were just talking about your regimented schedule
Yeah, yeah.
and
Well, yeah,
how
just-
important it was and how
So-
long you did it for 14 years.
For 14 years. But the point I wanted to make is a year and a half, not even a year into my retirement, and I'm still working, by the way. I manage a 20 unit or 27 unit apartment building in Carlsbad, and I do some work on there when necessary. So I'm not completely retired. But once I retired, the ADHD came on. I'm like, I didn't like, who is this? I never even realized until now that it's so powerful, and it is something to deal with. Because I had it right there under the designer disease label. I think that people, they invent diseases just to invent drugs, to sell drugs and make billions of dollars off of somebody who's not even sick, but you've made sick.
Okay.
So that's kind of where we are with that. But stay tuned. Next episode, we got a neat surprise for you. It's gonna be
Next
fun.
episode will be fun.
Yes.
Hope you enjoyed this one.
Yeah, thanks.
I'm Paul.
And I'm Dennis, and we're signing off for today.
This is Waves and Wheels.
Waves and Wheels.